The promotion announcement came on a Tuesday morning, buried in a company-wide email between updates about the parking garage renovation and upcoming fire drill. I scrolled past it initially, then jerked my thumb back up the screen when my brain registered Morgan's name, not mine. Morgan, who had joined the firm 3 years after me, who I had trained myself when the HR department was too understaffed to properly onboard new hires. I sat motionless at my desk, coffee cooling beside my keyboard as colleagues began to filter in. The marketing department at Horizon Solutions was small enough that news traveled fast, carried on whispers and sympathetic glances. By 10 o'clock, 4 people had stopped by my cubicle with variations of "I thought for sure it would be you," and "Politics, am I right?" But it wasn't just politics. I knew that by lunchtime, when I finally mustered the courage to congratulate Morgan in the break room. Her handshake was firm, her smile genuine but guarded. She deserved the promotion. She was sharp, dedicated, innovative. What she didn't have was my 7 years of experience, my portfolio of successful campaigns, or my institutional knowledge. What she did have, however, was Davis's ear. Davis Campbell had become our department head 14 months ago. He'd arrived from a competitor with grand visions and a selective memory for contributions that weren't his own ideas. From our first meeting, there was a subtle disconnect. He would maintain eye contact a beat too short when I spoke, would reframe my suggestions as questions that needed further exploration rather than solutions ready for implementation. At first, I convinced myself I was being paranoid. Then I started keeping records. In meetings, men spoke over me 17 times more often than they interrupted each other, yet Davis never redirected the conversation back. My proposals required more data, while identical ones from male colleagues were promising directions. When I led projects, Davis insisted on twice-weekly check-ins. When Morgan or Jason led, monthly updates were plenty. I never wanted to be the person who cried discrimination. I was raised believing that merit speaks for itself, that hard work inevitably rises. For 7 years I had arrived early, stayed late, volunteered for the projects nobody wanted, fixed the messes others created. I'd believed the numbers would speak for themselves. The 43% increase in conversion rates on campaigns I managed, the client retention statistics that were highest under my accounts. But numbers, it seemed, spoke more softly than whatever Morgan whispered during the golf outings and after-hours drinks I couldn't attend because of childcare constraints. It wasn't Morgan's fault. She was playing the game as it existed. I was the one who'd been naive enough to think the game had fair rules. That night, I drove home with my windows down despite the October chill, letting the wind burn my cheeks and whip my hair into knots. My husband found me in our backyard after putting our daughter to bed, staring up at stars barely visible through suburban light pollution. "Bad day?" he asked, handing me a glass of red wine. I told him about the promotion, about Morgan, about Davis, about the years of extra effort that seemed suddenly weightless, evaporating into the night sky like breath in winter air. "So what now?" he asked when I finished. I took a long sip of wine, letting its warmth spread through my chest before answering. "I don't know," I admitted, "but I know I can't keep pretending this is just bad luck or timing. Something has to change." What I didn't say, what I barely allowed myself to think, maybe that something was me. Maybe it was time to stop trying to rise in a building where the ceiling, though invisible, was absolutely solid. I started documenting everything. Every meeting, every email, every instance where my ideas were dismissed, only to resurface with someone else's name attached. My journal became a catalog of small injustices, each one insignificant on its own but damning in aggregate. My husband urged caution. "You need evidence, not emotion," he said one evening as I furiously typed notes about that day's strategy session. "If you're going to HR, you need to be bulletproof." He was right, of course. So I became methodical. I forwarded emails to my personal account, recorded meetings with the company-approved app meant for catching details we might miss. I compiled a spreadsheet tracking project assignments, visibility opportunities, and recognition. The data revealed patterns I'd felt but couldn't articulate, How men with half my experience were given client-facing roles while I was relegated to background research. How Morgan had been invited to present at 3 industry conferences in the past year while my requests were denied due to budget constraints. After 6 weeks of documentation, I requested a meeting with Alicia from HR. We'd had lunch together occasionally when she first joined the company, before her promotion to management. She listened without interruption as I presented my findings, her expression carefully neutral. "This is comprehensive," she said finally, closing the folder I'd prepared. "But Eleanor, you have to understand how this might appear. Morgan is well liked and Davis has significantly increased department performance metrics. Using my strategies, I pointed out. The multi-channel approach for the Westlake campaign was mine. The demographic targeting adjustment for Richardson Industries was mine. Attribution is complicated in collaborative environments," she replied, her voice softening with what might have been sympathy or might have been condescension. "Have you considered that Morgan might simply be better at certain aspects of the role? Executive presence, for instance?" The term hung between us. Executive presence, that intangible quality that somehow always seemed to elude women who looked like me, who spoke like me, who hadn't mastered the art of being assertive without being labeled aggressive. "I'll take this to the diversity committee," Alicia promised. "But these processes take time, and Eleanor, Davis will need to be involved eventually." I left her office feeling hollowed out. The company's mission statement, painted in bold letters across the lobby wall, seemed to mock me as I passed beneath it. Where merit meets opportunity. Merit, it turned out, was subjective, and opportunity was selectively distributed. Things changed after my meeting with HR, though not in the ways I'd hoped. Davis became overly solicitous during meetings, asking for my input with exaggerated interest. Projects I'd previously begged to lead were suddenly assigned to me, but they were the struggling accounts, the clients already halfway out the door. Set up for failure. Morgan avoided me entirely. Someone had talked and office dynamics shifted accordingly. Lunch invitations dwindled, conversations ceased when I approached the coffee machine. I became simultaneously more visible and more isolated, marked as a troublemaker without having made any actual trouble yet. My breaking point came during the quarterly review. Davis praised everyone individually, highlighting specific contributions. When my turn came, he smiled thinly. "Eleanor has been with us for how many years now? 7? 8? Such loyalty is commendable. Eleanor keeps the wheels turning." The wheels, not the engine, not the navigation system. Just the wheels. Basic, necessary, but ultimately replaceable. Interchangeable. That evening, I updated my resume for the first time in 7 years. It felt like admitting defeat, but also like reclaiming control. I was more than how Horizon Solutions valued me. I had to be. 3 interviews later, I had an offer from Meridian Creative. Smaller firm, bigger role, 20% higher salary. When I gave my notice, Davis looked genuinely shocked. "We were planning your development track," he claimed. "There are opportunities coming that you don't know about." "You're right," I replied, surprising myself with how steady my voice remained. "I don't know about them, because no one told me, because no one thought I should know." My first day at Meridian Creative started with a panic attack in the parking garage. I sat in my car, gasping for breath, wondering if I'd made a catastrophic mistake. 7 years of institutional knowledge abandoned, professional relationships severed. What if this new place was worse? What if I'd jumped from a known problem into an unknown abyss? I called my husband, who talked me through breathing exercises until my heart stopped racing. "You've got this," he said. "Remember why you left." I did remember. I remembered Morgan's promotion announcement. I remembered Davis's dismissive quarterly review. I remembered Alicia's carefully neutral expression as she explained how complicated attribution could be. I straightened my blazer, reapplied my lipstick, and walked into the Meridian Creative Building. Director of Content Strategy. My new business cards arrived that afternoon, and I ran my thumb over the embossed letters repeatedly during my onboarding meetings. Director, Not coordinator, not specialist, not assistant, director. We poached you for a reason, explained Cameron, my new boss, during our first one-on-one. Your campaign for Elysian Hotels last year was brilliant. The demographic insights, the messaging cohesion, that's exactly what we need here. I blinked, momentarily disoriented. How did you know that was my work? I wasn't credited in the public materials. Cameron laughed. Industry's smaller than it seems. My partner plays squash with Elysian's CMO. He mentioned the campaign was primarily driven by some marketing genius at Horizon that Campbell keeps sidelined. Didn't take much digging after that. The validation was intoxicating, dangerous. I'd spent so long doubting my perception, questioning whether I truly deserved recognition, that having my worth so casually confirmed by a stranger felt unreal. The transition wasn't seamless. Meridian's processes were different, their client base more eclectic. I made mistakes, asked seemingly obvious questions, stayed late mastering new systems. But the difference was stark. When I spoke in meetings, people listened. When I suggested strategies, they were implemented. When I needed resources, they materialized. 3 months in, we pitched a major sportswear company. My strategy centered on micro-influencers rather than celebrities, authentic voices over polished perfection. It was risky, divergent from industry norms, but supported by research I'd been conducting independently for years. Research that Horizon had deemed interesting but impractical. We won the account, the largest in Meridian's history. At the U-Ashore celebration dinner, the client's marketing director raised a toast to Eleanor, who reminded us that authenticity outperforms celebrity every time. I almost didn't recognize the email when it came, a month later. The sender, D. Campbell, HorizonSolutions.com, looked like spam at first glance. I almost deleted it before curiosity compelled me to open it. Eleanor, it began. Performance in the marketing department has declined significantly since your departure. We've lost the Elysian account, among others. The board is asking questions. I've been instructed to reach out regarding your potential return. We can offer a substantial increase in the title of Associate Director. Associate Director. Still below Morgan. Still reporting to Davis. Still less than what I deserved, than what I now had. I drafted several responses, each more scathing than the last. I detailed the systematic undermining I'd experienced, the opportunities withheld, the credit stolen. I crafted paragraphs of eloquent condemnation, of righteous anger finally unleashed. In the end, I sent none of them. Instead, I forwarded Davis's email to Alicia in HR, adding only, "For your diversity committee records, pattern recognition matters." Then I closed my laptop and joined my team in the conference room, where they were brainstorming our next campaign. Someone had brought cupcakes to celebrate our recent wins. Someone else was sketching concept art on the whiteboard. Ideas flowed, freely. Credit given generously. Excitement building as good concepts became great ones through genuine collaboration. "What do you think, Eleanor?" asked Tessa, our newest team member. I leaned forward, feeling the weight of genuine respect in the question, and began to share my thoughts. Word travels fast in small industries. Within 6 months of my departure from Horizon, their client roster had shrunk by nearly 20%. I tried not to take pleasure in this, reminding myself that former colleagues I respected still worked there. People with mortgages and children's tuition payments who didn't deserve collateral damage from Davis's leadership failures. But I'd be lying if I claimed complete neutrality. A part of me savored each industry whisper, each LinkedIn update showing another Horizon employee changing companies. My phone rang one Tuesday evening as I was finishing dinner. An unknown number, with Horizon's area code. "Eleanor, it's Alicia from HR at Horizon. Do you have a moment?" My pulse quickened. The diversity committee investigation must have concluded. Perhaps there would be consequences for Davis, accountability for the systematic issues I'd documented. I excused myself from the table and took the call in my home office. "We've completed our review of the materials you provided," Alicia said, her voice carefully professional. "The committee found insufficient evidence of gender-based discrimination. However, We've implemented additional management training for all department heads to ensure fair evaluation practices. The familiar heat of indignation rose in my chest. Insufficient evidence? I gave you metrics, testimonials, documented patterns. The committee determined that factors other than gender could explain the disparities you identified, she interrupted. Performance evaluations, interpersonal skills assessments. Subjective measures, I countered, controlled by the same people perpetuating the problem. Silence stretched between us. Finally, Alicia sighed. Off the record, Eleanor. Half the committee are Davis's golf buddies. This was the best outcome possible. The training is something at least. After we hung up, I sat motionless, digesting this unsurprising yet still disappointing conclusion. My husband found me there 20 minutes later, my untouched tea gone cold. Bad news? He asked. I shook my head. Old news. Just took a while to arrive. That night, I drafted an article for Medium about unconscious bias in creative industries, using anonymized examples from my experience. I hesitated before publishing, finger hovering over the button. Was this petty revenge or legitimate advocacy? Was I helping future Eleanors or just nursing old wounds? My phone pinged with a text from Tessa. You coming to the strategy retreat next week? Cameron says you're leading the innovation workshop. The contrast between my past and present struck me anew. At Meridian, I wasn't fighting for baseline. Respect. I was leading workshops, mentoring junior staff, shaping company direction. I published the article. Within 24 hours, it had 5,000 reads and hundreds of comments, many from women sharing identical experiences. 3 industry publications requested interviews. A prominent business podcast invited me as a guest. What began as personal catharsis transformed into an accidental platform. You've struck a nerve, Cameron remarked during our next one-on-one. People are talking about Meridian differently now, as a place that values merit over politics. He paused. Just be careful. You've made yourself visible, and visibility attracts scrutiny. He was right. As my public profile grew, so did the pushback. Comment sections filled with accusations of victimhood. Former Horizon employees I barely knew contradicted my experiences. An anonymous account with suspiciously familiar phrasing claimed I'd been promoted beyond my capabilities at Meridian, that it was only a matter of time before my fundamental mediocrity revealed itself. I recognized the language instantly. Davis. Rather than retreating, I leaned into this unexpected advocacy role. I began collecting stories from others, particularly women of color whose experiences made mine seem trivial by comparison. I connected promising talents with mentors, shared salary insights to address pay gaps, and used my growing influence to amplify overlooked voices. Never expected to become an activist, I admitted to my husband late one night. That wasn't the plan. He smiled. Maybe the plan was always smaller than you. The Richardson pitch was my first real test at Meridian. Our largest potential client yet, a household name with pockets deep enough to transform our agency's trajectory. The team had worked for weeks refining our approach, and now, standing in the client's gleaming conference room, I felt the weight of everyone's expectations. Then Morgan walked in. She entered behind Richardson's CMO, portfolio clutched to her chest, eyes widening slightly when she saw me. In the 14 months since I'd left Horizon, she'd been promoted again to external partnership director. Of course Horizon would be pitching too. Of course they'd send their rising star. Eleanor, she said, extending her hand after the initial introductions. Small world. Her smile seemed genuine. Her handshake firm but not aggressive. I searched her face for signs of discomfort, embarrassment, perhaps even guilt. Found none. Because she had nothing to feel guilty about, I realized. Morgan hadn't created the system that elevated her while diminishing me. She'd simply navigated it more successfully. The anger I'd nursed wasn't really about her at all. The Richardson team invited Horizon to present first. Morgan was polished, confident, her strategy solid if conventional. Safe choices backed by proven metrics. The Richardson executives nodded appreciatively, asking thoughtful questions that Morgan answered with practiced ease. When our turn came, I abandoned portions of our prepared deck. Instinct told me that following Horizon's safe approach would position us as the weaker version of the same offering. Instead, I steered into our differences. You've just heard a compelling case for evolutionary growth, I began. We're here to discuss revolutionary potential. I outlined a strategy embracing calculated risk, targeting untapped demographic segments, leveraging emerging platforms before they saturated. My team followed my lead beautifully, adapting on the fly, expanding on concepts we'd previously deemed too adventurous to present. The energy in the room shifted. Richardson's CMO leaned forward. Their digital director began taking rapid notes. Even Morgan watched with undisguised interest. 2 weeks later, Cameron called me into his office. Richardson had decided to split their business, traditional marketing to Horizon, digital innovation to Meridian. Not the complete win we'd hoped for, but a foot in the door with the year's most coveted account. They specifically cited your presentation as the deciding factor for the digital allocation, Cameron said. The board is impressed. They're discussing an equity offer for key leadership. His smile conveyed the implied meaning, I was among that key leadership. That evening, a LinkedIn message appeared from Morgan. Congratulations on the Richardson win. Your pitch was brilliant. I've been thinking about our time at Horizon lately. I stared at those words, unsure how to respond or whether to respond at all. My finger hovered over the delete button when another message appeared. Things are changing here. Davis is out. Board decision, effective immediately. Several accounts have followed you to Meridian. Your Medium article made waves internally. I'm leading a task force on department culture reform. Would value your input if you're willing. Davis was out. The man who had diminished my contributions, who had created an environment where merit mattered less than politics, who had likely been behind the anonymous comments attacking my capabilities. Gone. My first impulse was vindication, followed quickly by suspicion. Was this Morgan's attempt to extract competitive intelligence? A PR move to counter the growing perception that Horizon fostered discrimination, or genuine reform? I took the weekend to consider my response. On Monday morning, I agreed to coffee with Morgan. Neutral ground, limited time commitment. She arrived at the cafe early, nervous energy evident in her rapid speech and too frequent smile adjustments. I should have reached out sooner, she began. After you left, things got worse. Davis consolidated power, surrounded himself with yes men. Anyone who challenged decisions was sidelined. Like me, I said quietly. Her gaze dropped to her coffee. Yes, like you. She took a deep breath. I didn't understand then. I thought it was just company politics, not systemic. I was benefiting, so I didn't question it. And now? Now I'm in a position to actually change things. But I don't know where to start. The request was clear, though unspoken. She wanted my help. The person who had documented everything, who had seen the patterns, who had found success elsewhere. She wanted a roadmap for fixing what had broken me. I don't believe in neat endings. Life doesn't deliver them, and neither does corporate America. The reforms at Horizon weren't immediate or comprehensive. The equity offer at Meridian came with expectations that stretched my work-life boundaries in new ways. Success, I was learning, created its own complex challenges. Morgan and I established a cautious professional relationship. I agreed to consult on Horizon's culture reform initiative, not out of loyalty to my former employer, but because the women still working there deserved better. Once monthly, I met with their newly formed diversity committee, reviewing policy, drafts, and training materials. You could come back, you know, Morgan suggested after one such meeting, 6 months into the process. Director level, reporting directly to the executive team, no Davis interference. I declined without hesitation, not because I harbored lingering resentment, but because Meridian had become more than just a refuge. My team there was producing the best work of my career. My influence was expanding beyond traditional marketing into product development and corporate strategy. I'd found not just recognition, but a voice, "You've changed," my husband remarked one evening as I practiced a keynote speech for an upcoming industry conference. 2 years ago, you would have agonized over every word, terrified of being too assertive or not assertive enough. He was right. The constant second-guessing had faded. The mental energy previously consumed by navigating unfair systems was now channeled into innovation and leadership. Not everyone has the luxury of such reclamation. Many remain trapped in toxic environments by financial necessity or limited options. My privilege in being able to walk away wasn't lost on me. This awareness fueled my continued advocacy work. The Medium article had evolved into a newsletter, then a mentorship network connecting experienced professionals with promising talents from underrepresented groups. We created anonymous reporting tools for documenting workplace discrimination, aggregating data to identify problematic companies and departments. Several firms, including Horizon, had approached us about using these tools internally for early detection of cultural issues. One Tuesday afternoon, as summer heat shimmered outside my office window, Cameron appeared in my doorway. "Richardson wants to consolidate their account," he announced without preamble. "All of it. They're ending their relationship with Horizon." "Because of our work?" I asked, surprised. "Because of you," he corrected. "The CMO specifically cited your team's innovation and responsiveness, said their Horizon contacts were constantly comparing their results unfavorably to ours." He paused. "There's a board meeting Thursday. They want to discuss your promotion to Executive Creative Director." Executive Creative Director, the position I'd once believed was permanently beyond my reach, now potentially mine, not because I'd changed fundamentally as a professional, but because I'd found an environment that valued what I'd always been. That evening, I received an unexpected email from Alicia, still at Horizon's HR department. "We lost Richardson today," she wrote. "Not entirely unexpected. Wanted you to know the diversity committee recommendations were fully implemented last month. Transparent salary bands, blind initial resume reviews, structured interview processes, mentorship programs, early results promising. Female promotion rates up 22% this quarter. Also, Tessa applied for our Open Strategy Director role. Strong candidate. Thought you should know." Tessa, my protege at Meridian, the eager team member who'd thrived under my mentorship. She'd never mentioned applying elsewhere. My immediate reaction was betrayal, quickly replaced by understanding. She was pursuing growth, opportunity, advancement, exactly as I had done. The following morning, I found Tessa in the break room nervously adding sugar to her coffee. "Horizon?" I asked simply. Her shoulders tensed, then dropped. "They reached out. Better title, more money. I was going to tell you after the interview." She looked up, eyes searching mine. "Are you disappointed?" I considered the question carefully. "I'm proud," I said finally. "You should absolutely explore the opportunity, and if you take it, make them earn you every day." The cycle continues. People leave environments that diminish them for ones that nurture their potential. Organizations either adapt or decline. New challenges emerge, requiring new responses. There are no finish lines in professional growth, no moments when the work of creating equitable, productive workplaces is complete. Later that week, standing before Meridian's board as they formally offered me the Executive Creative Director position, I thought about the version of myself from 2 years earlier, the one who'd sat in her car having a panic attack, wondering if she'd made a catastrophic mistake by leaving familiar toxicity for unknown possibility. I wished I could tell her that the ceiling wasn't invisible after all. It was merely elsewhere, in a building she hadn't yet entered, waiting to become her floor.